I love mixing up my games. I find it fresh and stimulating to play various types, as often I discover myself burning out real quickly if I play the same genre of games over and over again, which is not a fun experience. So whenever I see a random game I've never heard about that looks anyway cool, I'm on that like butter on toast. So when my eyes stumbled upon Rouge Flight and saw a glimpse of its gameplay, I was fully on board, an on-the-rails shooter with so much style it simply hooked me in an instant. And after the dreadful Unreal segments from Kingdom Hearts, this looked like a breath of fresh air to clean out my system. Released on October 24, 2024 for all modern consoles and developed by Turn Pixel and published by Prep Games, Rouge Flight, as mentioned, is an on-the-rails shooter with a retro style. So without further ado, let's pop in our spaceship and blast into what this game has to offer. The story of Rouge Flight is one of a desolate future where AI takes over and starts to annihilate all of humanity. The last few survivors hide underground and eventually come across a sick fucking spaceship. And now it's time to take the fight back to the artificial intelligence. In all honesty, I wasn't expecting much, but there is multiple endings, and it sort of hints at some sort of time anomaly happening from what I gathered. And this aspect, as I went through each ending, was kind of getting me hyped. I was starting to expect something big and bold as we got closer and closer to the true ending. But it didn't really deliver. The true ending feels anticlimactic to a certain degree. In the grand scheme of things, I think the narrative overall is fine, but the excitement I felt rumble within me at the potential of the story being something more than what I expected going into it was so palpable I could almost taste it. I don't know, it just felt like it was building to something a little bigger that was brimming to be explored. But in fairness, when I picked this game up, I wasn't expecting a story at all. I just wanted to shoot stuff in my pure class spaceship. So I was pleasantly surprised with what we got. I guess my complaint here is, I just wanted more. But once you get in the cockpit and start blowing shit up, it's great. I can't remember the last time I played a full-fledged on-the-rails shooter, but boy oh boy did I find myself enjoying this immensely. As you take to the skies and space, there's a great sense of speed that the game creates as you zoom through each zone. Accompanied by the combat you experience, you're just being hit by this adrenaline-pumping action that makes you feel like the sickest cunt to exist. It hits hard the first time you boot up the game. It loses that luster after a playthrough or two, but there is still a thrill that is always delivered through the presentation as you plow through enemies. You have your standard continuous fire, and throughout the playthrough, you can come across several types of different weapons, my favourite being a laser that just feels unjustifiably powerful as you tear through whatever gets in your way with it. Once I got this, I didn't care about the rest of the weapon types. But you have your standard rapid fire, which you always start off with, a spread shot, which I found just sad to use, a slower rate but bigger version of rapid fire, and the previously mentioned overpowered lasers. You could also get extra turns in stages that would act as power-ups, firing off the same weapon type you would be using. And it's all glorious with the mayhem you will create, as you wipe hundreds of foes out of existence. You also have lock-on missiles, which are mighty handy for bosses that have multiple points to strike, or when the screen starts to fill up with a decent amount of powerful enemies. But you have one more form of attack, which is quite frankly your most effective weapon of destruction, your drift. Yeah, you heard me right. You can drift in your banging spaceship and just decimate everything. And it looks insanely cool as you do it. Like, just look at it. Now, one thing I noticed is that if you gear out your super duper spaceship right, you can spam your drift move pretty much constantly. You can make the cooldown non-existent, and this can easily break the game, and has the added bonus of stopping your high score multiplier and basically extending it as long as you want. It's laughable how powerful this move is, and eventually I stopped myself from spamming it because it just lost enjoyment after the first few minutes of figuring out how invincible you are. Simply put, I kept it in the back pocket as a get out of jail free card. And that sums up your destructive power you have, and it really does feel like a power fantasy that just wraps you up in a cozy but bloodthirsty embrace. But you do have defensive options with your barrel roll, which is funnily not used to evade, but to deflect any fire that would hit you. There's also another move that has you speed forward, What it does, I have no idea. I couldn't figure it out. Anytime I used it, I really didn't notice anything. We then have the final move of our interstellar spaceship that slows it down and pulls in any items your enemy drops, from restocking missiles or health for your delectably phenomenal spaceship. All these mechanics come together to make a smooth and satisfying on-the-rails shooter. Now, as you have noticed from the gameplay I've shown so far, the game does have you in a third-person perspective, but there is a first-person view as well, and I wish I could say it's as deadly as it sounds, but it's not. It feels as if you don't move while in this mode, and while it's neat, it takes away a lot of the energy and momentum the game offers while in third person view. Heck, even using drift in first person just takes you out of it and back to third person for a bit. It really does feel like it was tacked on. It feels like a lesser way to play the game. Now back to the story for a bit. As I mentioned, there are a handful of endings, and with the true ending, it starts to mix it up by throwing different variety of enemies at you, which is really bloody cool. It brings a freshness to it after going through the mission several times at this point. And yet again, I got my hopes up thinking that maybe they're going to have one final boss that's added in on this run as it's the true ending. And they didn't. It's still the same final boss. And I think this added a little to the disappointment I felt with the story. I just had this feeling it was going to be a bit bigger with how they were mixing things up with the enemies. And as I said before, I just wanted more, which I guess is really a brilliant compliment in this game's favour. Because if a game can leave you feeling that craving, then it means it's done a stellar job. And speaking of jobs well done, this game is visually brilliant. Right off the bat, you'll recognize its retro anime style that takes influence from the 80s and 90s, from its actual character designs and your fucking insane spaceship. There's something about the colours used and the slight VHS CRT-like filter that I think adds to this aesthetic they achieve. And if you want, they even have a retro mode, which changes up the artwork to look even more from the time period they're trying to capture, and even change up sound effects. They really went all in on this, and I can't help but appreciate the sheer effort the developers went to. Also, one of the things that I absolutely adore is the view of your pilot as she flies your spectacular spaceship. Seeing her react to how you move the ship is such a small detail that I found pulled me in. Just super neat. Another neat feature is when you're upgrading your ship. Not only does it boost certain elements to your ship, it actually adds a lot of visual changes to your spaceship of pure destruction. Like, I was expecting 2 or 3 big changes, but there is quite a few altercations that visually spice up your mode of transportation through space. Its weakest element when it comes to visuals might be some of its level design, as its more enclosed spaces feel kinda boring when you're travelling down through a giant hole or down a long metal pathway. But it's more open stage design that might just show off clouds, or planets teeming with lava, or a storm-riddled environment, or travelling through space with debris as you see a sun in the distance are all much more pleasing to the eyes. And where would an on-the-rails shooter be without its music? And Rouge Flight delivers on this front. Every stage has just the right amount of oomph to get you stuck into the massacre you unleash upon the AI menace. Just strong beats to bop the head along to as you start blasting. There's a decent listen to outside the game as well, but it truly is more effective with how the music complements the game. And that's Rouge Flight, an insanely fun on-the-rails shooter where you blow up shit in your bitchin' spaceship. With fun controls that keep your energy pumping, a great deal of customization, incredible visuals, and a great soundtrack to boot, you really can't go wrong with Rouge Flight. Sure, it has some issues, like its first-person mode or some of its visual designs for its stages being a little repetitive as you fly through them, but this game just gives a good old rush through you as you play. And when a game makes you feel like that, I can't help but love it. Well, until next time friends, take her handy.